Let's continue. Perfect. So let's go back because it's trying to convert the other meeting. So let's go back in again and continue from where we left. So I'm assuming you can see my screen again, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now let's go back into the form. So we're right here again. So we are, gosh, give me 1 second. He's asking me to do something. Let me give you the name, the basics. Let's just do that. We don't need anything slowing us down. Let's get out of that. We don't need that. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So now we're back in the forms, right? So this is where we left off. So we put on there all this information, right? If there's if it is definite fee that you're charging, if it's an exact dollar amount, you can click that and put it on there. If it's a percentage, you click that and we put that on there. And if there are any additional terms or anything that you want to include, you put that there. And you have your client's information on there, and then he has you on there automatically already. So now, if you're using the MAR forms, this is where your exclusive buyer tenant brokerage agreement is. And we can just fill that out again. And you will see the difference between this form and the one for which I just clicked right here, the buyer broker agreement for G-Car. You're going to see them, but we're going to address both of them at the same time. So exclusive buyer tenant residential brokerage agreement is just what data does it store? Your client's information. You put their phone number. If you have their address, you put the address on there. If you don't, it's not mandatory, but you know, if you have it, put the address on there. If you don't, it doesn't matter. But you need their phone number, you need their email address, your information, because this is a brokerage that you work for, and your office phone number, and your cell phone number, and your email address. Okay. Over here, the buyer authorization. This is where you want to put something here. The buyer is seeking the following type of property. Are they looking for single family homes? You can type it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Are they looking for condos? You can say single family homes, condos, and townhomes. It doesn't, whatever it is that they're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
you just type that in there. Then,
Just the structure of the home, not so much the amenities and stuff, just the structure, like family,
correct.
single family. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yeah. If they're looking for single family homes, they're looking for a farmhouse. Just the general description of what they're looking for, is what you put over there. Um, then your buy agency agreement, this is where you have to have a determinate date. Maryland requires you to have a start date and an end date. Your start date is the day you open that you're writing the contract, which is today. And when does it terminate? Depending on the conversation you've had with your client, or depending on how long you think it's going to take, or if there's any resistance and your client says, no, I only want a month's agreement, I don't want a long-term agreement, you put the date in there. Again, good explanation and a good relationship with a buyer, a potential buyer, you really wouldn't have any issues with them. I've never really had an issue with them agreeing with me to do it, whether it's a 6 months or 1 year, depending on the urgency and the readiness of the client. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And even if, let's say I put a year on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to go longer than a year. Let's say I put a year on there and then the client turns around to me and says, no, Jimmy, I don't want to be in a relationship with you for a whole year. That's too long. You can
Mm-hmm.
always change that.
Okay.
And if you end up changing that, you can come back to this contract and you can cross it out and put a new date that they're okay with, and then you both just initial that date.
Okay.
But that is never any reason for any problem about being signed this. So if a client says, no, I want a short term, that's fine. You do a short term. If you think they're going to have a resistance to a year, do 3 months, do 1 month, do 6 months. Just say to them, no problems. If we haven't found a property within that time frame, you know, then maybe we can just extend it. you know, longer. And then there's a different form that you can use to extend that. There's a change in terms form. You can use that. It's not a big deal, you know. Then over here, Maryland requires you to put a specific reason or ways, an easy way for your client to either terminate the agreement or for you to terminate the agreement. Whatever term works for you or whatever the terminology is what it is. For me, I just usually just put in there either per party can terminate. Actually, not. I really don't use that. I just say because I follow suit on what it says. Okay, it says agree to the following terms, following for the termination of this agreement. So I just put on there by written, email, or text message due to non-performance and a 5-day or 7-day notification. Notification. The reason why I do that is it means, I can easily fire a client or the client can easily fire me if I notify them that they're not doing what they need to do, they're not following through, or if they feel that I'm not doing what I need to do and I'm not following through, they send me a notice and say, listen, you have 7 days to correct this action, or you have 5 days, Jimmy, if I don't see any change, if you're not responding to me in the next 5 days, I'm going to terminate this agreement, because you don't want to do a lot of work and then a client you make it too easy for them to just terminate the agreement just because they don't want to follow through. Because you've invested time and energy, right? So you
Mhm.
want to make it easy, but you also want to make it make sense. So you just
Mhm.
all your work is not for naught, right? It's not for anything. So that's the reason for that. But whatever works for you in your business just becomes there's no hard and fast rule. You just want to make sure you protect yourself and you make it easy for them to, you can put on there that the client, if client cannot terminate if they don't talk to me, or whatever works for you, that
Mhm.
is kind of like what you put on there, right? So, um, what form is this? Okay, yeah. All right, cool. Sorry. Um, I had to just remind myself. Okay, so again, having had the conversation with your buyer or having established the way your business is going to run is what this part again is talking about your compensation. If you're doing a percentage as well as a dollar amount, this is where you put it on there. If it's only a percentage, you do that. If it's a combination, you do that. If it's right here, you do whatever works. So I'm just going to put a standard on there and I'm going to put this number on there because this is a standard number that every one of my client signs. And this dollar amount that I put on there is the flat fee or the admin fee. If a client would negotiate that and they says, no, I'm only going to do this or whatever the case is, you can always cross that out again and you can both initial it. But we'll
Okay.
talk more about that, later on. This part is a protection clause for you because I haven't done all the work. Let's say you've done all the work and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, you've shown them properties, you've done all this hard work, and then the client says, you know what? I just don't like working with you any longer. And you've already written a contract, or you've shown them the property, and they just want to fire you for any reason. But then they turn around and still go and buy that house without the use of another agent. You want to put a clause in there to protect yourself. I usually do between 30 to 45 days. So that way you make sure that you protect your compensation. Then we come over
And
here.
there can be any number. It can be 90 days. It can be whatever.
Yes, it can be whatever, yes,
Okay.
whatever works for you to protect you.
Okay.
Um, I normally do it again 45 days max. Say now it says over here in the event a lease is executed, the compensation due to broker is this. So let's say, for example, you show them a house and they decide that okay, you know what, they're not buying the house, but they went to do a lease instead, and or you guys are converting that into a lease. You want to put on here what is the compensation due to to the brokerage. So you can put whatever that is. You can put on there. Um, And everybody have a difference in how they handle this. So I can just say, as negotiated by both parties, for example, by both parties. So, or you can put a dollar amount there, you can put what the percentage is. That's just, this is just to protect you that if we're flipping from a purchase and we're doing a lease instead, for whatever reason, you're still going to get paid, whatever you guys negotiate with the landlord or, the lease agent for that lease. Make sense?
That negotiation needs to be in writing somewhere else, right? The exact.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And then this talks about how compensation is done by the listing broker. EXP does not participate in direct in what we call gosh, the word escapes me right now, but we do not I'll tell you when I remember. EXP does not, we do not engage in direct compensation with the other broker. And those wordings are also here. So then over here is just you selecting what forms you're including, in if you're including any of this. If not, you don't select what you're not including. If you have additional forms you want to, you can put on there like the EPA forms, like NAR equal opportunity forms, stuff like that. You put those in there, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Even things like ABA forms, the affiliated brokerage, you put down there. So that's what that is. Then to the next one. This is if you were using the GCAR form. And so you'll see what the difference is. So, but again, you don't use both of them together. You just use different, whichever one you want to use. So again, similar, what date does it start? Between the buyer and the EXP Realty, which assigns you the agent, for the broker. And you keep coming down. And over here, it talks about your broker compensation again. It says buyer acknowledges that compensation is negotiable and is not prescribed by law. So what is the compensation that you guys are agreeing to? If it's a percentage, you put it over there. If it's or whatever that number is, you put it there. Whatever the number is, is what you put on there. I'm just going to use that number. If it's going to be a dollar amount, you select this part. Then it now says over here, it says buyer and buyer broker, which is your buyer and you agree that the broker compensation will be paid as follows. The buyer shall pay the broker compensation as an additional closing cost at settlement. If that's the way it is, it's that. This is the difference between the GCAR. Or it says the buyer shall seek payment of broker compensation from seller. The buyer authorizes buyer broker, which is you, to request such contribution in offers to purchase property. Buyer understands that such seller contribution is negotiable and must be made a part of any ratified contract of sale. In the event seller does not pay the total of compensation due, the buyer hereby agrees to pay the difference due to buyer broker. Many agents will select this because what this kind of like reflects what was happening before the settlement. And what that means is the assumption has always been that the seller is the one that pays the buyer broker, right? That's just a standard.
Mm-hmm.
But due to the lawsuit, and due to changes also that eventually will occur, we don't know where it's going to end up at. There's a school of thought that says the buyer will be the one that will pay, because if the DOJ completely and totally says, based on their weighing in on this whole deal, if they decide that the buyer is responsible for paying that, then that's what's going to happen. The buyer will have to pay the buyer broker for the compensation of their work. But this kind of like just makes it like neutral. This is the difference and the good thing about the GCAR form. So you're letting the buyer know that, listen, my job for you, my fiduciary duty to you as my client is I will negotiate and request of, and you are agreeing that I can ask the seller to be the one that pays for my compensation, my brokerage's compensation in the deal. So you can negotiate that, including even negotiating, closing help and all that. But they are agreeing to the fact that in your negotiations, you can have them, pay for your compensation. Make sense? And if for any reason they not say, oh no, we can't pay it or we're not going to pay it, this is also letting the buyer know that they are really the one that is responsible for that, if not. Okay. So
Okay.
that becomes what you select. That's what many agents will select, which is established up here already. Now, additional broker compensation, you can say, but you can also add this way. Buyer agrees to pay additional broker in the amount of X amount of dollars, which is where, let's say, if there's an admin fee, you can add it on there, whatever your admin fee is. But whatever your admin fee is must be standard with every single deal. So if your standard is this amount, that's what it has to be on every single agency agreement. Now, if you have a client that says, I am not paying that, or you guys negotiate a different amount, this amount needs to stay on there. But if they now turn around and they want to negotiate a different amount, after this is on there as a standard, you can strike that out and put the new amount that you both agree on to, and then you initial that part.
Mm-hmm.
But, and the reason benefit of that for you is this: if you ever get audited, if any of your files get audited, it will be seen that you're not discriminating against anyone. Your standard is that dollar amount. However, someone else negotiated something different. But
Okay.
it's a standard that you charge A, B, C, D, anybody that you're dealing with. Make sense?
And yes, and the administrative fee and like what does that cover? Because I would ask that question.
Okay. So the administrative fee could be you are saying as a standard for my work that I do, the fact that I'm going to show you properties, the fact that I'm going to, do certain work and we're going to see a billion properties or whatever, that covers your administrative fees that you charge every single
Okay,
client
I
that you
see.
go with. Right.
I
So
see.
some agents will even charge a consultation fee. But whatever you are charging A must be charged to any and every person.
Mhm.
If someone else negotiates it and say, no, I'm not paying that, that's understandable. But that's your standard that has to be on every single agency agreement. Otherwise, it will be construed as you charge someone, but you don't charge someone else.
Okay.
Okay. So for example, if that's the amount and someone says, oh, all of a sudden now they don't want to buy any longer, and now they want to just go to rental, what's the, what is the value of the work that you've done and that you will continue to do based on all the, now you're driving all over town to show different properties or anything like that, you can do that. Some,
Mhm.
like I said earlier on, some agents even charge, a consultation fee or retainer. So look at this second part. It says buyer has paid an advance fee of X amount of dollars to retain the services of a buyer broker, which will be credited against the buyer compensation due. I said, so if you as an agent charge a retainer fee, some agents do. They'll put that dollar amount there. I don't, but some agents do. Some agents can say you even paying that retainer fee up front, but it will never be credited. If that's the case, that again is going to be made clear. But whatever I'm charging anybody, if I choose to charge any amount, I have to charge it on every single contract that I write to anybody that becomes my client. If
Mhm.
that person now says, if I've charged it to four people and my fifth client says, Jimmy, I love your contract. I understand what you're saying, but I am not paying this. And if you're not willing to negotiate it or to change it, I'm going somewhere else. I don't want to lose a client. They've
Mhm.
negotiated it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Then I can cross out that amount. And then we both initial it to either whatever we both agree to, change it to what we both agree to, or to zero. Then we initial it. but I can never ever not charge every single person if I'm doing it. So if my standard is $1,000, for example, that better be what's on every single one of my contract.
Okay.
Okay. And if I don't charge it, I don't ever charge it at all. Now, what's your protection period? Again, here you can put your number of days. So it's 30 days, 45 days, 90 days, 120 days. Whatever your protection period is, you want to put it there because that's how you're protecting yourself. So running along again, what's the term? When does this start and when does it end? This is why I was saying the G car is different from and I was wrong when I said to you before. So G car is 11:59 p.m. MAR is 6 p.m. Do you understand what I'm saying now?
Mm-hmm.
So if this contract is going to end in 2025, by midnight of that date, this contract ends
Mm-hmm.
for a G car. Whereas above here on the MAR form, this contract will end at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Okay. I know it's probably a lot, but don't worry. It's super duper easy. Don't worry. You're good. Now, because we're in Maryland again, it says this brokerage relationship established because you can use it for DC and for Maryland. Okay. This agreement may be unilaterally terminated prior to the expiration date by either party delivering, so on this one, remember on the MAR over here, where we had to write all this, you see this part?
Mm-hmm.
That's it by written or email, text, that within a 7-day notification.
Mm-hmm.
On the G car, yeah, it just lets me easily put the date or the time in
Mm.
there.
Okay.
See, so that's another easy, straightforward thing. G card just is easier and better in that way. But some agents like MAR for certain reasons, they like G card for certain reasons. But just pick whichever one you're going to use. And you can always interchange it for different clients. But it's just that you don't want to use MAR and G card together on a single transaction.
Okay.
Makes sense. Then we do the same thing over here, and any other addendum that we're using, and then you can additional provision. Same thing goes over here. If there's anything additional that you want to include, you put it right there, and
Quick
everything.
question, Jamie. Go
Yes,
back
ma'am.
up under
Uh-huh.
the dual agency.
Yeah.
Uh, even we check that even though it's not going to be a dual agency, it'll be we just check that that's just a default, right?
I'm glad you said that. We check that, yes, even though it might have been, because remember, in Maryland, there really truly is not there's no dual agency is not allowed in Maryland.
Okay.
A true dual agency means I represent both the buyer and the seller in a single
Right.
transaction.
Right.
But Maryland does not allow that. But because we are a big brokerage under one umbrella, we kind of like define our dual agency by saying basically, if for any reason I'm showing buyer a property and I'm the agent, but the property that I end up showing them is listed by eXp Realty as well. I'm letting them know at this point, that's why this form is automatically included, that there could be a situation, even though it's not a real dual agency, but there could be a situation where we're seeing a property that is listed by eXp Realty as well. And if that were to happen, are they okay with going forward with that property? And if they are okay with it, we've told them then we can also now go back and reaffirm that dual agency form, which is right here. Okay.
Okay.
And when we get there, I'll explain that too. But yes, but that's what that means for us, you know, in EXP. There's no real do. If it was DC, you select this part. But yes, that's the real definition of dual agency, which is not allowed in Maryland by law. So now we get over to this form right here, which is the equal opportunity form. This is just a FYI form. It tells them what their rights are, the responsibilities, the fact that they cannot be discriminated against. So that's what that form, that's just a FYI. You don't need to sign anything there, but you need to give it to them. So now dual agency, it tells you again what dual agency is, how it occurs, what it means in the state of Maryland and how it truly will work. So that's what that is. But over here, for us, the consent for dual agency, again, we put a EXP Realty over there, right? I'm just gonna says, it does this to me. I don't know why, but that's not what I want, but that's fine. So, so EXP Realty, we're representing the buyer, so we select that. So they signed this form that they understand above, and that if I refuse to consent, there would not be a dual agency, that I can withdraw my consent to it at any point in time. But again, there is no real dual. We don't dual agency is not allowed in Maryland, so it's not something to be concerned about. But it's something that we want them to know if we happen to be selling them, or if they happen to choose a property that is listed by EXP Realty. And this is going to be where the affirmation is going to be, because now you're going to list that property once you find the property, and they will
And
say,
those signatures, there's two signatures there. Is that for the agent and or the broker and the
"Oh,
buyer? Or
good
those two
question."
signatures right there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just for the buyer. So
Oh,
this is if there are two buyers in this deal, one buyer will sign here, the second one will sign over there.
gotcha. Okay.
And this is what they'll sign initially. They don't need to sign this part until and unless we actually end up in a situation where there is a property that they're buying that is listed by EXP Realty.
Okay.
Then we come to the wiring fraud, a notification that they have signed. This is just, again, straightforward, illegal to do certain things that is, cyber criminal, cyber fraud and all that kind of good stuff. So then we come here. This is the part where if indeed, again, there is if you belong to a team and I'm listing a property and you're part of my team and they're buying a property that belongs to EXP Realty, this is the notification, dual agency within a team, which they'll sign. So again, this is just FYI. You don't
Hmm.
need to sign that right now. You don't even need to include it on there because you don't know, it may never ever happen, you know. But if it does happen, you will have to introduce this form and they have to sign it that they acknowledge that. So it's one form that you don't necessarily need. This is the buyer's estimated cost worksheet that we were talking about. That once you find a property, this is just again FYI that you can just give them, including your package, so that they will start getting ideas what fee they could be paying. What is going to be included in what the lender is going to disclose to them. How all those numbers work. That's what this form is. But
This
it's
is just an estimate for them, not actual.
yes, that's correct. Yes, ma'am. So that's what this one is. So it just gives the idea.
Oh, okay, the estimate. Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Then let's get over here. Affiliated business arrangement disclosure. Again, that's all it is. You don't need to fill the property out. We don't have one yet. You can include the date on there because you're including this as part of the package that you send them to sign. And it just tells them, we have an affiliation with Success Lending. That's a lender. Affiliation with Last Title. That's the title company that we use. They don't have to use any of those, but if they do, and they select those, we are disclosing to them that EXP Realty has an affiliation with those companies.
Okay.
And it gives them the estimated cost that for each of those services. And this is where they sign. If there are two buyers, buyer A and buyer B signs right there. And then we come to important information for the purchase of real estate. This is why I said, this is just FYI telling them, legal requirements, agency relationship, what's fair housing, financing, what's your responsibilities, what is it that they need to do, wire fraud. You can actually, so this is the form that you can actually put, excuse me, you can have this form, for example, be before the understanding, whom agent represents or right after it. Because again, it's a disclosure form for them to have an idea and where your conversation could start,
Mhm.
and it tells them their rights and all that good stuff. So that's what that is. And finally, actually, didn't we? Um, Sometimes these forms repeat. Um, did I not have that? Okay, no. Okay, sorry, it's not the same. Okay. And this is one, oh yeah, this was one last one I put on there, the MLS disclosure for residential um, purchases. So again, this is a form that you over here, it says broker slash agent. So EXP Realty will be right here. EXP wants us to include this form. So EXP LLC, and then your name as the agent is there, right? So you have that. Your client's name, Buyer Jones, is what we're going to put on there. So, because if you make this a standard, all these forms that then you'll be fine. What's your client? Are you representing the seller? Because you need this form if you are representing the seller. Are you representing the buyer? Yes, in this instance. So you put that. For the buyer, you don't need an address yet. Again, you can always fill that later. But for the buyer, the only thing they will be doing over here is they just initial that they acknowledge this up here. And what is this up here? This is just talking about Bright MLS, that we're going to be using to search for their properties, the purpose of Bright MLS and what it does. It tells them how it works, and how broker fees are calculated, all that kind of stuff. That's it. And this is the only thing they will initial for the buyer. If it was the seller, they will acknowledge that. And then you now come to the part of this that they will have to sign, and we'll talk about that in a different training, because this just lets them know, I'm listing your property. This is when we're going to put in the MLS. Do you agree to me having it coming soon? All that basic stuff for the seller. But for the purpose of the buyer, this is it. These are your standard forms. So you've done that. And typically, again, we will not include this. Sorry, we will not include this. They exclude the MAR brokerage relationship and the GCAR. We're not going to include both of them. We pick one that we're using. If you don't want, whichever one you don't want, you just come over here. See where it says this minus
What's the
sign?
difference between the two?
With the GCAR, it's more time specific. He expresses to them the time
Gotcha.
that arrangement stops, when it starts, and it reduces the amount of writings that you have to do. Because
Mhm.
the MAR, you have to do a lot of writings on what your terms are and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And this one ends at 6 p.m., while this one ends at midnight, 11:50.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you
Yeah.
just choose whichever one you're not using. If you click on this negative sign, it removes the form that you're not using.
Okay.
So everything is filled out. Then you go to prepare for signatures. It brings you back to this screen. And this is where you now select again. Buyer Jones, I'm sending it to them. I need them to sign. So I'm going to click needs to sign. I'm the agent. I want to receive that form. My broker, do they need to receive it? If they need to receive it, if they need to review, I'm going to say receive a copy. If I don't need them to do anything, no action. So over here, if I'm sending this to the listing agent, and again, this particular one is just for you establishing relationship with your buyer, right? So the listing agent doesn't need one, because we haven't selected a property yet. However, if we were sending out a contract, then boom, you can tell that client to receive it. You can tell the listing agent to receive this contract if it was a purchase contract, and they will get it after your buyer is already signed.
Okay.
So they will not get it before, they will get it after.
Okay.
Okay. So once it's later, that's what it is. So in this case, the agent is going to receive it. I put it under my email, so I'll receive it. I'm your buyer at this point. This ought to be you, and you get it. So this is what it's going to look like. So we click next, right? Because we've changed those actions, and it goes through, thinks about it, boom, boom. It does everything and brings you to this page. And on this page is where you start putting initials, where initials need to go, and all that stuff. So on this one, this is just an information paperwork. So you come down here at this end of this, he already put their signature on there. If it's two buyers, it will automatically have it there as well, right?
Okay. Okay.
So we go to the next form, and on the next form, this form never fills out. I don't know why. So you will have to select signature, okay? And you have to click it on there. And
All
the
right.
way I have my format set, it puts signature, date, and time, when they sign it. It puts that on there. Then you go to the next one. Okay. So it's like some of them will fill out automatically, some will not. So you just have to keep going through it. And this one's already put it on there. All right. And you, as the agent, needs to sign this. So I just come here. Oh, let's see oh, I must have done something. I told it I did not want to sign, right? So that's what that is. So it's
Okay.
only one person signing. So
So
if I
quick
need to edit
question.
it, sorry, go on.
No, so quick question. So if the buyer overlooks or mistakenly not sign where they supposed to sign or initial, they
Mhm.
will not be able to send it back to me, or this form will stop them and force them to do that, right?
Correct. This form will always take them back and say, no, you haven't done it. You haven't done it. He's
Okay.
always going to keep taking them back until they complete everything. He's not
Okay.
going to let them. Correct.
Okay.
So let's say you even make a mistake. You can say, oh, let me save this and exit because that's not really what I want. So you go back in here and you go to edit, and it takes you right back here and say, oh my gosh, I forgot. I'm only sending this form to the agent, but I need to sign it. So you click on those three dots. It says edit recipients, and you go over there and you come over here. That's me, you know. Oh, I need badge. So boom, you go over here and say edit, because what you've said to the form here is they need to sign boom. So they need to sign excellent. But this guy is only receiving it. I don't want him to receive. I want him to also be able to edit. So you go over here and you go over, you click on the sign over here. You say, no, I want him to be able to sign. So you do that.
Oh, just to edit. Okay.
Correct. And then you click save. Now, the moment I do that and I save and I come back out, now look, I can go back to this form now and say, oh, because I forgot that I have to sign it. So I'm coming down here, I'm going to that other form where they need to sign. And guess what? I click signature and this is my name. Boom. Now I'm allowing me to sign. See that? And you can
Mhm.
reduce this. If you want to reduce this, all you do is just come to the side and reduce it so it's not overlapping.
Okay.
Then boom, if you click it again, oops, I gotta now delete that because I don't want that information there.
Mhm.
So boom, I just go delete, delete. And that's how you go through and you put signatures on every single thing. Whatever you made, it doesn't have the initial signature. See, it's going to automatically put it on everything, but you just need to go through to make sure that you didn't miss anything, because some forms, after a while, you get used to the forms that does not automatically fill out, but it's usually that understanding form that doesn't fill out. So let's say now and this form right here. On this form, again, I don't know why, he puts it on the affirmation. You don't want it on the affirmation. You want them to be aware. So you bring it over there and you bring that over there. And that's it. Oh, let's say now, for example, you realize that, oh, wait a minute, I need to fill out something. So you go to text field, right? And then you can keep going and say, where do I want to put the text? Let me find one form that requires text. It could be any of these forms, but let's say I
Mhm.
want to put text somewhere that the form did not put it on there before. Let's go to buy agency agreement, for example. And let's say I want to put a text over here. All I need to select the text. I go over here, I click that. I can make this as big as I want, and I can say, put whatever I want on there and say, addendum. Whatever it is I need to type, I can type that in there using the text. Oh, something I don't want it to be there. Remember what we were talking about? So I, this is what my standard is, but this client is like, absolutely, I'm not going to pay that. You come over here, you click strike, and then you just click that, and you run the line across. You can select what you want.